6 shots in the back, all fired by the defendant into the back of Casey Goodson, with no reasonable basis for the defendant to perceive a threat by Casey. It's an unjustified shooting. Casey was only 23 years old at the time the defendant killed him, and he was a Franklin County deputy at the time. Casey's death is a tremendous loss to his family. He grew up in Columbus. He went to Beechcroft High School. He was very close with his mother, Tamla, and the rest of his family. His family is very proud of Casey. After high school, Casey worked at the Gap and at the warehouse. And he saw all these trucks coming in and out. He says, you know, Mom, Grandma, I want to be a semi-truck driver. Casey did that. He went to school, learned to drive a big semi-truck, and he got his commercial driver's license. He wanted to be on the road. And he did do that. He drove for a company that actually hauled goods for Walmart, traveled to California, every place. After doing that for a while, he decided that, you know, I want to come home. I don't like doing all this traveling. So he came back home and he moved in to his grandmother's house and was working at the Gap warehouse up until the time of his death. Now, the evidence will show December 4th, 2020, as I said, Casey was living with his grandmother, Sharon Payne, at 3996 Estates Place, and that's in Franklin County, Ohio. That morning, he had a dentist appointment, and it was at 9:30 in the morning. Sharon allowed him to take her car, which he drove her car regularly, to the appointment. Sharon owned a Nissan Versa, a black Nissan Versa. Casey sees the certified dental hygienist, Karen Hay. You will hear from Karen Hay. Karen Hay will tell you what type of mood Casey was in that day. She said he was a great patient. That's what she will testify to. He was in a great mood. And in fact, during the hour and a half she was working on his teeth, they spoke about a lot of things. Television shows. And in fact, one of them they talked about was ice truckers, these big semi-trucks that drive across these lakes and stuff, hauling goods. Because Casey was interested in that type of stuff. And actually, Karen watched that show too. He indicated at some point that maybe he wants to go back into driving the semi-truck. He also talked about his job at the Gap. He had goals. He said he wants to move up and gain more responsibilities. He wanted to help out his family. He had dreams. Ms. Hay, after she's done working on his teeth, told him, Casey, go home, take a nap before you go to work. Even suggested, hey, why don't you go get a milkshake or something before heading home because of all the work that she did on his teeth. I believe she said that he mentioned something about getting subs. He's going to take subs home to the house. As Casey's leaving, he hugs her goodbye and is very appreciative and was actually looking forward to coming back at a later time to have his front teeth worked on. After leaving the dentist office, Casey does make a remote order from his phone for 3 12-inch subs from Subway. He picks the subs up in a single large plastic bag. They're all put in one bag. And he leaves just after 12 o'clock noon when he starts to head home. Now you will see the video from Subway. And you will see the bag as he carries it out. It's a big bag. It's not something really small, but there are 3 12-inch subs in it. And you'll see what it looks like when he's carrying it out of the Subway into the parking lot, getting into his car. Now, during the trial, you will see evidence from a surveillance video from St. Matthias Church. And that video shows Casey traveling southbound on Carl Road, approaching the intersection of Ferris and Carl Road. Just going to, so that we can orient you where this is. It's the snowflake. Courtney may have the, oh, I touched it, I'm sorry. Okay. So the video shows Casey traveling southbound on Carl Road here. I don't know why my pen's not showing up here on the screen. Pardon me, I hit something. Oh, the snowflake. We ready? Okay. So the video will show Casey traveling southbound. This is Carl. And here's the intersection of Carl and Ferris. So he's approaching this intersection right here. You also see in the video at that time, the defendant is in an unmarked U.S. Marshal's truck. He's traveling westbound on Ferris, approaching the intersection. The defendant stops at that intersection. He has a red light. Casey, as he gets to the intersection, the video will show that Casey makes a continuous left-hand turn onto Ferris. A continuous left-hand turn onto Ferris. He then travels on Ferris down to Estates. As you recall, he lives on Estates here. And he makes a right-hand turn to head home, putting on his blinker, his right turn signal, to make that turn. He then travels down and parks in the front of his house. Now, they lived on the corner of Case and Estates. And it's customary for the family to, when they park in front of their house, Sharon's lived there 20 years, homeowner, it's customary that they park in front of the house, and they park on the wrong side of the street because they're cognizant of the neighbor next door. He's got a driveway or a fire hydrant or whatever. So a lot of times they'll just pull in front of the house and go in and out of the house, instead of going down to the corner and turning around and coming back and now parking in front of the house. This is everyday activity for the family. Casey, upon parking, gets out of the car with the bag of subs and keys. Now, Sharon's car had some issues like maybe a lot of our cars do. The darn thing doesn't lock. There's not a key fob. It locks, but the only way you can lock the car is if you get out and you put the key into the driver's side portion of the car and turn it, and it will lock the vehicle. We know Sharon's vehicle was locked. We know that Casey locked the car. And we know Casey had the Subway sandwiches, carrying them in the house. So with the keys and the subs, after taking time to lock the car, he proceeds to head to the side door of the home. Now, there's nothing unusual about going to the side door of the home because the family uses the side door. Because the front door sticks The front door is hard to open. It doesn't shut right. So the family uses the side door that's around the corner of the house. And that's where Casey went. The side door to the house is located inside a wooden fenced yard that has a gate. The fence surrounds the side and backyard. To enter the side door, Casey has to step up onto a landing and then would have to take another step to enter the house. There's a storm door. And the storm door had glass. And it has a metal mesh, which you will see. It's got like a metal mesh that's on probably the middle third of the door. And it's for, like, if you have animals, some of you have dogs, okay, where they push up against the thing. It's to prevent the dog or the animal to push the window out or whatever. Casey pulls the store door open first. He has keys, the bag of subs in his hands. Casey's back is turned towards the storm door. So the storm door is behind him. And his back is towards the open gate out towards the front of the house. He uses his keys to open the side door by holding the subs. Now, meanwhile, the defendant had made a U-turn up there at the intersection and pursued Casey. And in the meantime, what you'll learn, he parks his truck at the end of Estates and Case. He comes down here and flies in here and parks at an angle. The defendant approaches the open gate leading to the side door. As Casey unlocks the door to go inside his home, the defendant, using his AR Daniel Defense assault rifle, equipped with an aim point red dot sight. You will see the weapon. This is the weapon the defendant had. He shoots Casey 6 times in the back, killing him. All the shots passed through the storm door, breaking the glass, with 3 shots passing through that metal mesh, 1 striking the top of the frame. Casey's back is towards the direction the bullets were fired from. His back is towards the defendant. After being shot 6 times, Casey is face down in the kitchen. Now, this is a small house. You go into the side door. If you go straight, you head downstairs. You go left, you go into the living room. You go right, not far from the door, you're in the kitchen. This is a very small residence. He's laying face down on the kitchen floor. Face down in the kitchen, his palms down on the floor, his AirPods in his ears, Subway sandwiches on the floor. Casey's keys are hanging from the door. Now, Sharon Payne, Casey's grandmother, and Janae Sanford, Casey's sister, are home with the rest of the family. The whole family's there. There were many children in the home. They all had, not many, I guess I guess 3, to me is many maybe. But there were small children in the home at the time. One child was eating oatmeal at the kitchen table. Looks like when Casey's coming in, about where he fell, you'll see, we don't have photos with him laying there, but you'll see where he was. His head's almost to the kitchen table when the shots were fired. Sharon heard something that sounded like chandelier breaking. Ernest hears something. Janae, gunshots. Casey's grandmother, Sharon, ran into the living room area, was able to see in the kitchen. She sees Casey is face down. She didn't go into the kitchen. She's from the living room. She's able to see face down, not far from the side door, what she looked like bullet holes in Casey's back. She then calls 911, and you'll hear the tape. And she says, somebody's killed Casey. He's been shot in the back. Now, Janae, Casey's sister, also sees Casey laying face down on the floor. She's in her bedroom when she hears it, and she's seeing it from a different perspective. Where she comes out of her bedroom, she takes 2 or 3 steps past the bathroom, and she's able to walk around like this and see. Now, she can't see Casey's whole body, but she also sees that Casey's laying face down on the floor with his hands out. Moments later, Janae again is looking out. As you can imagine, it's pandemonium now. She goes out to try to look again. Casey's been rolled over onto his back, presumably by the officer. Now, there's a handgun that is owned by Casey that was found at the scene. Casey's gun was found on the floor with its safety still engaged. The gun had not been fired. He also had a soft-sided holster in the front of Casey's pants. The holster does not have a strap to hold the gun in place. It's just, you put it there. There's nothing there to hold it in. So when I say holster, a lot of us think of how a police officer's holster is. Put a strap over it to hold the gun in the holster. This holster does not have that. Now, 2 years prior to his death, Casey had obtained a carry conceal permit. Casey had gone through the proper training, application process, and background check that allowed him to legally carry a gun in a car concealed. Casey would carry his gun, and he would carry his gun in that holster in the front of his pants. It was a handgun. Shortly after the shooting, the medics showed up, but it's futile, as Casey is pulseless, unresponsive, and when he was transported to Riverside Methodist Hospital, he was declared dead. Now, the defendant in this case has been charged with 2 counts of murder. And you're going to get the law from Judge Young. 2 counts of murder, 2 counts of reckless homicide for the death of Casey Goodson Jr. And at the appropriate time, the judge is going to instruct you as to what all the elements are and the definitions that go with that, for you to make your determination as to whether we, as the state of Ohio, have proven both counts of murder or 1 count of murder and reckless homicide, all, 1 or 3 of them. Doesn't have to be all of them. It can be 1 of the counts, 2 of the counts, or all 3 of the counts. I submit to you the evidence will show all three counts. So the evidence that the state will present will prove to you beyond a reasonable doubt that the defendant has committed beyond a reasonable doubt a violation of all three charges. So what's the evidence? So what's the evidence that we need to show? The evidence is, we're going to show it, the defendant did it. That the defendant acted intentionally. The defendant acted knowingly. That the defendant acted recklessly. You can have the same mental intent for all of them. Purposely is being the highest. Knowingly is in the middle. Recklessly is the lesser intent. It's heedless indifference. All three of these acts caused his death. Those are the elements. He did it. So what do we have? We have after the shooting, the defendant's rifle was collected from him. His rifle was turned over to Sergeant Stanley with the crime scene search unit. The defendant agreed that six bullets had been fired from his gun. The 6 shell casings collected from the scene were recovered from the scene. And we have 6 shots in Casey's bag. The ballistics examination by the Columbus Police Department's examiner determined that the shell casings, the bullets recovered from Casey from the coroner's office, matches the defendant's weapon. Now, you also hear from Dr. Ann Shepler, who's a medical doctor with the Franklin County, she's the deputy Franklin County coroner at the time, who is board certified in forensic pathology. Dr. Shepler would testify, among other things, as to the location of Casey's wounds, entrance and exit wounds. You will learn that the bullets striking Casey struck him in vital areas, vital organs that are necessary to sustain life. You will learn that the six bullets were fired from his weapon, not one, but all 6 hit its target. From the evidence, we believe the evidence shows conclusively that the defendant acted purposely, intentionally, knowingly, and recklessly when aiming his weapon to shoot and kill Casey by pointing his weapon when he shot and killed Casey, and by pulling the trigger and shooting him 6 rounds from a highly powerful weapon, hitting him and striking him in the back. That's the mental elements. Now, Dr. Shepler will also testify to where these wounds were, and they were devastating, absolutely devastating. In her autopsy, the last element is cause of death. She concluded that the cause of death was due to gunshot wounds in the torso, and it's homicide. That's the manner and cause. Now, during her testimony, she will also testify to you, and you're going to see some photos. That's why we asked that in their questionnaire. Can you look at photos of something that might not be real pleasant? And we're going to present them to you because it's important for you to see, and you need to look at them as unpleasant as they are. And that will be through Dr. Shepler. So, where did she find that the bullets went? Well, vital organs were struck, causing these serious deadly injuries to Casey. One of the bullets went through the left ventricle of his heart. It was a heart shot. Went through the left ventricle of his heart. Multiple wounds to the upper lobes of his left lung. Wounds to his pancreas. Wounds to his liver, bowel, intestinal damage, fractures of vertebrae causing hemorrhages of the spinal cord. Dr. Shepler also found that all 6 bullets traveled right to left in an upward elevation. Dr. Shepler found that Casey's back would have had to been turned towards the direction of the bullets when they were fired. You also hear from Amy Julia, and she spells her name a little different. I'm saying it Julia, so when you see her name, it's Q-U-L-I-A. It's pronounced Julia. She's a forensic scientist, forensic examiner for Firearms and Tool Mark Unit of the FBI Laboratory in Quantico, Virginia. Ms. Julia came to Columbus with her team and did an examination at the house. She determined that the bullets traveled through that metal mesh from outside to inside. She determined that the bullets traveled in an upward direction and right to left through that storm door that was to the backside of Casey. She also found that the storm door would be at least at a 45-degree angle when the bullets passed through the door. So Casey would have been standing, if the door's open here, he'd been standing like this, kind of twisted, to go into the house, unlocking the door, by the way, with subs in his hands. 2 items, 2 hands. Her findings, this places Casey between the storm door and the open door to the house. Now, Ms. Julia examined the door that opens into the home. There are no bullet strikes. She examined for bullet strikes on the porch, no bullet strikes. She didn't find anything that would strike the main door, which would indicate that the door was open and not closed, else it had gone through the storm door to hit that door. Ms. Julia's findings of the directionality of the bullets, they match Dr. Shepler's findings as to the directionality in the bullets. And you're going to see from Dr. Shepler when she testifies as to the trajectory. She's going to tell you about the angles as to the bullets that pass through Casey's body. Ms. Julia is going to testify about the angles or the trajectory of the bullets going through the storm door. Now, ladies and gentlemen, so the state, I submit, will prove the charges. And if I think you remember in voir dire, there was all this talk about this justification. And we talked about, don't hold us to a burden that we don't have to prove. We're going to prove to you this is murder, 2 counts, and reckless. We don't have to prove justification, nor is it our obligation. That's them. They have to prove that that he was justified in his actions of taking Casey's life. I think somebody mentioned that whoever's got the burden, the other side just could sit there and play cards and not do anything. If they don't meet their burden, and if we've met ours and beyond a reasonable doubt of these charges, well, it's game over. But we're not going to do that. We get to challenge any evidence that they claim is justification. But you'll hear in our case evidence to show that Casey did not pose a reasonable threat to the defendant at the time he pulled the trigger. Casey did not pose a reasonable threat to the defendant or anyone else at the time he pulls his trigger. Because the evidence that in our case shows Casey wasn't even facing him. We know Casey was not a threat to the defendant by using the defendant's own words. He was caught on a body cam from another officer at the scene, Officer Penny, moments after the shooting, making a statement on the front porch. The defendant, you'll hear the body cam. You'll listen to it. We're going to introduce it. You'll see it. And you watch his demeanor in that body cam. Watch when he's talking to this other plainclothes officer. He unknowingly knows that Penny's standing there, who's a uniform officer, has his body cam activated playing. The other plainclothes officer doesn't have a body cam, and neither does the defendant. So what's he say? What's he say? Quote, when explaining what happened. Quote, he came out the street, gun in his hand, going to the side door. He was going in with a gun in his hand. What he didn't say was, I was afraid. I was in fear for my life. I was in fear for someone else's life. Silence speaks louder than words, ladies and gentlemen. He's an officer, trained officer. He's not like us. This is not justification. But remember, they have to prove it. They have to prove it, that it was. Our evidence will show beyond a reasonable doubt that the defendant is guilty of the charges that we've charged him with. And the burden shifts to him, and that he's not going to meet his burden of proving to you by the preponderance of the evidence that he was justified. We're asking you to return a verdict on all the charges that the defendant fails to prove that he was justified in shooting Casey 6 times in the back. Thank you.